Hey, folks, welcome to an all new So Bad It's Good. This is your pal Ryan, and this is your Thursday episode. Now, listen, this episode was going to be a little different. I was going to have a guest, and I would have been it would have been a normal, silly episode where we would have talked about pop culture, and I will talk some pop culture by myself. But I did not feel I didn't feel like laughing with somebody today. Another very brutal day in America. And before you roll your eyes, listen, I don't like to speak about things like this. It is not my wheelhouse, and I'm very aware of that. But I do want to just kind of get some things off my chest because I've been very sad all day. Obviously, a lot of things happened today, but we also had the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, no matter where you stand in political affiliation, I think the vast majority of us can agree that that these things shouldn't be happening. They shouldn't be happening here in America, and they seem like they happen more and more. And sadly, these things divide us more than they bring us together, which is just so sad because I think in moments like this, these could be things that could bring us together. Um, I'm not really poetic unless I'm talking about Vanderpump Rules, but I saw this thread today, and I thought this really made me think. This is from Ezra Klein, and he wrote, "In the last few years, we've seen the plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, the storming of the Capitol and pipe bombs left at the RNC and the DNC, the break-in to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and the brutal attack on Paul Pelosi, multiple assassination attempts against Trump, the assassination of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband and their dog, and the shooting of a state senator, John Hoffman, and his wife. That happened in June. Luigi Mangioni's assassination of healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, and then today the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Political violence is contagious. It is spreading. It is not confined to one side or belief system. It should terrify us all. The foundation of a free society is the ability to participate in it without fear of violence. Political violence is always an attack against us all. You have to be so blind not to see that." And there's so much, if not all of that, I agree with. And there are these things that happen more and more frequently here where it really sometimes makes this silly little job I do, where I was just telling you guys yesterday how grateful I am to be able to talk about these things that I love. But when so many bigger things are happening in the world, it sometimes can feel a little pointless, a little fruitless, and a little like, okay, I mean, yeah, let's talk about Taylor Frankie Paul being the Bachelorette. I mean, um, and then today is September 11th. And of course, this happens every year where we remember all of the victims of September 11th, 2001. And so it is just, it's bad feelings on top of bad feelings. Now, Charlie Kirk, I did not pay attention to a lot of what he did. I've read a lot of things, and a lot of things are coming out now. And there seemed to be a certain kind of rhetoric that I don't really subscribe to. But that is no matter, he leaves behind a wife, he leaves behind children that I believe were there and potentially watching this. And it frightens me because these things seem to get normalized, and then it really just kind of pits us against each other. And that can be very frustrating when we're trying to think of things and remind each other that we can be one, or what are our commonalities, right? And then on top of everything, I mean, we're even leaving out the thing that happened today in Colorado, where 3 students, including the attacker, were shot at a Colorado high school. School shootings are so the norm. I mean, and this is the 13th school shooting since Columbine, if you remember Columbine in Colorado. Just in Colorado, 13 school shootings. And I think sometimes I can only speak for myself, but I know I can come off silly and goofy, but I do spend a lot of time really, really deep in thought and kind of just like, man, I wish I had this figured out. I wish I could figure this out or put some sort of positive spin on it. And I think days like these, it makes it even harder to put any spin at all. And a lot of people are saying things about Charlie Kirk that whatever his legacy will be, it will be. And those things I feel like we can talk about and debate for years or decades to come. You know, I mean, I was having to remind myself because I had forgotten about it in June of the assassination of the Minnesota speaker Melissa Hortman, June 14th, 2025. She passed away. Somebody dressed up as a police officer came to their door acting like they were there, that he was there to help them as a police officer, and shot her and his husband and I believe their dog. And we didn't really hear much about that after a couple of weeks. And these political systems, or our government, Republican and Democrat, they are there to allegedly protect us, right? I mean, our tax dollars at work. And all it seems to do really anymore is divide us. And that can be frustrating, I would imagine, for any kind of lay person out there just wanting to raise a family and give their kids a little bit better than they had it. And there doesn't seem to be this light at the tunnel, or I don't know, maybe it's just as I get older, hope seems to sometimes extinguish because you are so aware of the hate in the world. I'm reading this really interesting book right now, or I'm listening. I don't want to take credit for reading with my eyes. When I'm listening to an audiobook, it's called Careless People, A Cautionary Tale of Power, Greed, and Lost Idealism by Sarah Wynne Williams. And she was a higher up at Facebook. And it really takes you through a lot of the rise of Facebook and how they do affect our society, not just here in America, but worldwide. It talks about them trying to break in China and all of these other countries, and how they did affect elections. And Mark Zuckerberg, this guy that is so dedicated to coding and just to the business aspect of it, who will do anything for this company to thrive. And I guess if you're a stockholder, that is something so reassuring, right? But I don't think he is wired, obviously, like me or you. And he just sees the world in ones and zeros and, trying to just make this company bigger and bigger and bigger. But it just made me think about the original mission statement of Facebook was to bring people closer together. Was to make it easier for people to connect. And I think it really started off that way, right? But I think lately, and how I feel about social media, and if you've been listening to the show, especially in these last couple of months, I think I've said this enough times, I feel like it truly tears us way more apart. You're so aware of the hate. And if you're one of those people that don't go on social media, my God, bless you. Teach me your secrets. You are amazing. Keep on going. You are thriving. But man, just doing a cursory glance of every social media app this afternoon and evening, you see a lot of the same thing. It's hate on the left, hate on the right, hate, 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 hate. And then some posts about Taylor Frankie Paul being the next Bachelorette. And some Bravo posts. And when you're behind some sort of secondary screen using social media, you really forget about living, breathing human beings. You forget about being in front of somebody and the joy of being able to meet somebody new out in some place public. And yeah, I think I say the word empathy a lot on this show, and I think I've always been a fairly empathetic person, and I think that's even increased in the last couple of years. And for me, it's not hard to have empathy, and I think for some people it is, and I can completely understand that. But I would encourage in times like these to try to find some sort of empathy, because I think the easier feeling to feel is anger, right? And the thing that I don't get, I'm a flipping podcaster. The thing I don't get, and then we have this flipping Jeffrey Epstein shit, you guys. I mean, truly, what is the holdup? Why are people voting against releasing the files? Like, explain this to me like I'm a fucking idiot, because you're probably right. I'm a fucking idiot. But I don't, listen, hey, I don't care if Clinton's involved. I know he's been a creep towards women from, I think, about 20 plus years. I don't care if it implicates him. I don't care if it implicates Donald. I don't care if it implicates any of these bigwigs. What, just because people have billions of dollars, they deserve protection that everybody else does not deserve? Bullshit. Why is there any sort of protection? And that's the stuff that, that's hard to have empathy for. That can just kind of drive you angry. So there's so many things that I just don't understand. And I feel like you got the files, you got it. You're actually voting whether to release these things or not. I mean, this should be an easy one for Democrats and Republicans, even libertarians, whatever side of the fence you're on. I mean, this should be a home run where we're all together going, yeah, we all can agree this is bad. Let's know how bad it is. Let's know exactly everybody involved. I feel like that is a completely partisan issue that could actually bring us together. But it's another one that we seem to fight about. I mean, I have even no clue what the fight about on that one is. It feels like another dark day in America. And of course, September 11th is today. And we always want to honor all of the lives lost in that day. I've been writing here and there some little things when I get inspired, little pop culture essays and stuff. And I've listened or read through so many pop culture books in my day. I'm thinking of like Danny Pellegrino, or Ira Madison's book that just came out last year, which I loved. He's a dream guest. He actually just retired from Keep It, their podcast, a little while ago, which was so sad. But so many pop culture books, and I noticed in really most pop culture books, there will usually be a chapter about 9/11, because it was that thing that crisscrossed through politics, pop culture, everything. You will always remember where you were and what you were doing on that day. And I remember just the uneasiness and the not knowing of that day, and the fear. And days like today, it really reminds me of that feeling. Oh God! But which, by the way, you guys, so September 11th. I was in Arizona at the time. I had broken. We had both ended a very long relationship. I was still really young, but it had been a long relationship, and I was doing a play in Arizona with my buddy, but I still had a commercial agent, so I would get random auditions. They were few and far between, which really is the life of an actor. So I really didn't think, I wasn't really getting a lot, so I thought it was pretty safe to go do a play in Arizona and not really have to call out for the summer. And I was like, I'll just drive up if I have an audition. And I remember I got a commercial audition. September, was that a Tuesday? I'm not sure exactly what day, but I got a call for a commercial audition. And I think it was was it for Wendy's? It was something really, it was just a random commercial. And I got in the afternoon, and I was like, okay, I will just drive all night. I'll drive all night. And I didn't have a place to stay in LA anymore, because we had let go of our apartment. So my friend Susie, she was like, you can crash at my place. She lived right by Barney's Beanery, if you know Los Angeles, right near Santa Monica Boulevard right there. And I remember I drove, and I got in around like 2:30 in the morning, and she set me up on the living room couch and passed out, I think, around 3. And then she woke me up in the morning, and I was so groggy. It was so early. And you know, remember when you what a plane flew into a building? Wait, what? A plane flew into and then it was just spent all day watching this on CNN or whatever news you could get. And I remember in Los Angeles, there was all sorts of rumors. Now, this is really the internet. You know, this we didn't have the social media, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have. I mean, we had the internet, but not in the way that we do now. You didn't have TikTok, you didn't have this, so you would just hear these rumors, or you know, one of your friends would call and say something. Or I remember the local radio station K Rock said that there was a plane spotted in Los Angeles because you just didn't know. And I remember she lived in this apartment building, and we went up to the top of the roof, and we were just looking out at the skyline and just looking. And then we ordered like Domino's pizza. I mean, just these really weird, specific details of just like what do you do in a tragedy? What do you do? And I remember calling my mom and dad, and I'm safe. I made it here, and of course the audition was canceled. Everything I think got canceled that day. And I remember going to bed not knowing, not knowing what the future held, but knowing that it was going to be different, knowing that there was going to be a change. And I'm sure everybody listening out there has some story about that day, about what you listened to, what you watched, how it felt, what you ate, who you talked to. I don't know, but I think about that every year because it's completely mundane. But at the same time, you'll remember it forever. So I guess finally, before we wrap this little section up, I read this quote, and I was trying to find little pieces of hope or something to pray on, and this was from Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy, obviously assassinated as well. He said, "Let us replace the violence and stain of bloodshed that is spreading across our land with an effort to understand with love and compassion." And that really makes a lot of sense. Okay. Moving on. We're going to try to move on. Okay. I just noticed there's a fly in this room. So that's fun. A fly. Okay. So how are you guys? Are you good? Obviously, I'm not great. Oh, you guys, get this. So today, I before all of this mess, I went and I got to work out with my trainer for the first time since I got sick a couple weeks ago. And that really kicked my ass, but it was great. It was great to get out there and get the blood pumping and move my body. And I'm very sore right now, but it feels good to be sore sometimes. So that was a positive step. I was very happy about that. And oh, this is great. So we've gotten our first couple of, I guess, leaks, or actually this is an official announcement that the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, this is BravoCon stuff, the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City cast panel is going to be confirmed for that Sunday. So it seems like all of the ladies of Salt Lake City, which premieres next week, will be at BravoCon that Sunday doing a panel. So we'll be able to get our first taste at who is not talking and who is still talking. I remember that one BravoCon, the one in New York, where Whitney and Heather really were not well. They did not like each other at that time, and you could really tell on stage. And that was that was like watching a reality show in person when you're like, ooh, we are getting up to the date, like in the moment news of who is not getting along. And then our friend Jeff Lewis, he's so funny. He let it slip. Well, he was like, he let it slip today that he's a part of a couple panels at BravoCon. The Ask Andy one. He actually hosted one of the Ask Andy panels the last BravoCon. I think that was on the Friday. So he's doing one of the Ask Andy panels, which I think just means he will be asking Andy questions and fielding questions for Andy Cohen from the audience. And that was really fun last time. So it seems like from what he said on radio today that he's going to be doing that. And then, man, he causes so much trouble for himself, but it's so funny. It's such the way he does it, it's so great. Like he's just sometimes I think he doesn't care. Like he cares, but he doesn't care. And it's exciting. It kind of gets a little buzz going, but I could never do it. He let it slip that he was going to be a part of a panel called, And We're Back, or And Now We're Back, which just by the title of that panel, if I were a Bravo fan, and I am, I would take that to mean shows that are coming back. Now, what show was Jeff Lewis a part of that would come back? Huh, interesting. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you guys know. But I think he also said that he was going to be on that panel perhaps with Mercedes and Reza and Jen Fessler, because Jen Fessler was a guest today and said she was going to be on a couple panels too, including one for Jersey. So now things seem to be getting a little more focused with Jersey. If they're having a Jersey panel, that must mean that they're announcing that Jersey is going to pick back up filming again. And if Jen Fessler is on that panel, my mind, just some basic deduction, would mean that Jen Fessler would be part of the cast that's happening. And then the And Now We're Back panel, we know Mercedes and Reza, they've already filmed the Shaw's reboot called The Valley Persian Style. That's the working title for the reboot. And if Jeff's a part of that panel, whatever show he had been involved with on Bravo, that would make it seem that maybe we would see that show in the future. Who knows? Oh, wait a sec. Did Jeff? Wait, now I'm remembering. Jeff did a show called Flipping Out. Now I remember it. Oh my God. If a Flipping Out reboot does happen, I hope that I can be the Kiki Monique of Flipping Out. I appear in a scene with Doug Buden. I just want them to say Ryan Bailey, Ryan Bailey, Ryan Bailey. So that was said. And then the second hour, I told you yesterday that he was going to have Teresa and Gia on the second hour of the Jeff Lewis live show because they're promoting Special Forces. And it was, I enjoyed the first hour more. Gia and Teresa, sometimes it can be a real mixed bag in interviews. Sometimes, like, I think Teresa, her magic is in like scenes, like the reality element. So it was a good interview, but I didn't find out tons of new information. He did give her advice though. It said, whatever had happened, try to put it behind you, be the first one to reach out, make sure your side of the street is clean. And then, whatever happens. And so it seemed like he was encouraging her to potentially make up with Jersey castmates because that, I don't know what's going to happen with that. We talked about that rumor about Teresa potentially going to Miami, but I mean, when it comes to this kind of show and opportunity and money, I mean, I think that's what we want. We want reality to be real, but I mean, I think money is a great motivator in healing sometimes. Maybe it's not real, but it is a great motivator most of the time. So would you want to see Teresa back on Jersey? Would you want them to start off with a whole new cast? It doesn't look like it doesn't feel or sound like from the little things that I've heard that they're going to start with an entire new cast, but we'll see. So that was exciting to get some little teases for what they have planned for BravoCon. I'm such a documentary nerd. In fact, we're going to talk about today. I just finished the 2-part docuseries, AKA Charlie Sheen, about actor Charlie Sheen's life. And oh boy, you guys, if you are looking for a pop culture treat, if you remember all the different phases of Charlie Sheen's life, now you young kids might not even know who the flip Charlie Sheen is, but my God, this will really catch you up to speed. And you forget about how dynamically up and down and really down his life was. And this is warts and all. I've been talking about this docuseries for a couple weeks now. And I remember the first time I talked about it, I even brought up the rumor that he allegedly had, SA'd the actor, rest in peace, Corey Haim. And I was like, there's no way they're going to bring that up. They do bring that up. That does get brought up in this docuseries. They go into things that I did not even know or was aware of. And Charlie Sheen fully participates in this. This is like first person talking head interviews with Charlie, plus all of the people in his life. You have his wives. Denise Richards plays a part in this. I mean, it is so alarmingly honest. And I was about to say for refreshingly honest, but I don't think we're used to a lot of full blown honesty in pop culture anymore. So it is very shocking and alarming at times, but at the same time, really fascinating. And we're going to go through it because to me, God, he's such a really fine actor. And especially his early film career, which happened kind of by accident in a lot of ways. I mean, he was on such a run at like the age of 21. Like, my God, he did a cameo scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which was one of the best scenes of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is hard. I mean, that's insane because the whole movie I think is just brilliant, but had the best scene in that movie at the police station. And then he goes from that and he does Platoon with Oliver Stone. He does the movie Wall Street with Oliver Stone, back to back. Platoon winning Oscars, Wall Street box office success. I mean, this kid was 21, 22 years old at the time. He had held in high school a 1.2 GPA. He had a 30% attendance record. His dad is legendary actor Martin Sheen. His brother is very well beloved actor Estevez. Emilio Estevez. Yeah, Emilio Estevez. Man, I haven't said Emilio Estevez's name out loud. You know, that's what's so crazy about pop culture, guys. You think about these things. Emilio Estevez, Young Guns. You guys remember the movie Young Guns? Oh my God. Then remember Young Guns 2 and the Bon Jovi song, the John Bon Jovi solo hit. I'm going down in a blaze of glory. Take me out to going. And he's like up there in the music video on like these big like desert rocks, like wearing like Indian garb. I mean, true. I remember just rocking out to that as a kid. Loved Young Guns 2. Young Guns was good, but Young Guns 2. Holy moly. That was his brother. His friend, his like the childhood friend growing up that lived in Malibu. And this was before Malibu was a rich enclave of just mansions. It was just like Malibu was just like this beautiful area by the beach, but it wasn't like the rich enclave it is today. And one of his best buddies growing up, him and Emilio's, was Sean Penn. And Sean Penn plays a huge role in this docu-series. It was so good, the docu-series. I'm still kind of processing it. I just finished watching it and then came to talk to you guys. You know what? I'll just actually start talking about the docu-series right now because I'm already talking about it. So it's two parts, right? And he talks a lot about as a kid, his dad, Martin Sheen, wanted his whole family around. So he would pack up the family. And, you know, when he was filming Apocalypse Now with Francis Ford Coppola, he took the kids. So Charlie Sheen was like around Marlon Brando and Lawrence Fishburne, and they were there. I don't know, what was it, close to a year? Or like, no, it was like, no, Apocalypse Now took 3 years in all to film. And his dad, Martin Sheen, had actually a heart attack on set. And Charlie had been there before the heart attack and then came after it and said that his dad was a shell of a man. And if you have seen Apocalypse Now, those opening scenes with Martin Sheen, I mean, just you sometimes take Martin Sheen for granted as an actor. I mean, West Wing, obviously fantastic, but his work in Apocalypse Now is just so insanely good. And just, he is so tortured, but he had a heart attack during one of the scenes. And then Charlie and Emilio and the family came, and, you know, his dad was all of a sudden in a cane, and he would try to play catch with his dad to help him with his rehab. And each day they would be able to play more catch and stuff. But imagine this as a kid and watching your dad go through all of this. And there was a lot of drugs on set, and they had bought Emilio and Charlie and their other brother a Super 8 camera. Now, Super 8 cameras were really big in the 70s. I would love to get my hands on one. Spielberg had a Super 8 camera, and it was an accessible camera that you could use. And Martin gave it to his kids, and they would film these little movies and these little scenes where they were playing gangsters at like 9 years old. And then, you know, as they grew up, they kept making these Super 8 films, and they kind of got more involved, and there would be a lot of weed smoking involved and drinking. And then Sean Penn got involved, and Nicolas Cage, and all of these. I mean, imagine all these kids that you now know as like these major actors. But Yeah, he failed out of high school, didn't know really what he was going to do, and Emilio had already started having success as an actor, and he kept the name of Emilio Estevez. And Charlie was like, let me just try acting a little bit, and if it doesn't work out, I'll go to a community college, or I'll get a GED, I'll go to community college, and I'll be like a cinematographer or an editor or something. And Emilio, I think he was doing films like Repo Man, but he was having a lot of success. And Charlie went out there and started acting, and he booked something, right? He booked a role in this really shitty film, I think about a werewolf or something, like not The Howling, but something in that nature. And it shot overseas, like in Romania or something crazy like that. And he only had 8 lines in it, but the other people in that movie were George Clooney and Laura Dern in this really shitty film. But right before he was leaving, he had an audition for The Karate Kid, and he said he tanked that audition. But the director, I believe, his name's Bruce Avildsen, if I'm not mistaken, saw something in Charlie, and they called him and said, "Hey, can you start learning karate with one of our instructors tomorrow?" And so he went to his dad. He said, "Dad, they just offered me this huge film. It's supposed to be big, Karate Kid, Columbia Pictures. It's supposed to be a really big deal." And Martin Sheen said, "No, you gave your word to this other film in Romania." And he's like, "Dad, it's only eight lines. They can replace me." And Martin Sheen's like, "Giving your word is going to carry you in your career. Your word is going to carry you in your career a lot further than this movie Karate Kid will ever carry you." And that role obviously went to Ralph Macchio. And Charlie Sheen didn't understand that at the time, but in retrospect, he completely understands now what his dad meant. It's always interesting, it's like, it's taken me a long time to accept, what's for you is for you. Like, what's for me will be for me. And it doesn't mean you don't have to work hard and you have to try, but, destiny or whatever, what the magic of life, those things will find you because they're meant for you. So he does this film, and then he does this small role in Ferris Bueller's Day Off because Jennifer Grey, who played Matthew Broderick's sister, was friends with Charlie and said, "Hey, just come to set, meet John Hughes, the legendary John Hughes, rest in peace." And Charlie Sheen read the scene with his dad and really threw it away. Really didn't really put anything on it. Acting teachers will always tell you, just throw it away. Don't put anything on it. Don't throw a lot of stuff on the line. Just say the line. And Charlie was just reading to his dad, and his dad goes, "Don't do anything else. It's perfect." And he was like, "I wasn't doing anything." And he was like, "Exactly." And so Charlie Sheen then he wanted to look tired to go meet John Hughes. And he pulls up to set in his car. He looked tired. He borrowed his brother's leather jacket. He gets out of the car. Jennifer Grey comes out. John Hughes walks up and goes, "Oh, great." And just looks at Charlie Sheen and goes, "Okay, great. We'll see you next week." Didn't have to, he goes, "I didn't do anything. I just literally got out of my car." And so then he shows up next week, and he really is a standout in an already excellent film. And so then that leads to, obviously the huge role is Platoon. And that was originally offered to his brother, Emilio Estevez, and then Oliver Stone lost funding for the movie Platoon. And so the time got all switched around, and Oliver Stone asked Charlie to come in and audition for a second time because it was another audition that he tanked. And he ended up taking that role away from his brother. And on set of Platoon, I guess it was going so well that Oliver Stone came up to him and said, "Here, sign your name on this napkin. I want you to commit to my film Wall Street," which is a great film with Michael Douglas, where Michael Douglas's famous monologue, "Greed is good." Really, it was like a clarion call of what was to come with Wall Street and, capitalism and our economy. Really, I think that movie still holds up. And he was just on fire. But there was a through line through the whole movie, and Sean Penn says this in one of the talking heads, that Charlie always kind of seemed to potentially destroy everything that was going so good because there is something about Charlie that maybe he doesn't believe he deserves it. Maybe he believes he didn't work enough for it, or that he wasn't good enough. And I just thought, God, we all have that aspect of ourselves. Now, listen, I am not, and nor does this paint him in a good light, but you can't deny that this man is very charming. He tells a really good yarn. He's very entertaining in telling these stories. Now, obviously, you have to realize, man, he's done some horrifically monstrous things. And the drug addiction was so next level that he should have been dead 20 times over. But there is still something so charming about him. And I think that's why he managed to tank his career and then build it back up, tank his career, build it back up. Really insane. So he was doing all these films. And then he bumped into Nicolas Cage one night in West Hollywood. And he said that night kicked up his partying to a next level. Him and Nicolas Cage and the rest of their friends, they would just go insane. They just partied to the next level. And then all of a sudden he was just taking roles in shitty films. And he was just more concerned with partying, sleeping with chicks, just the whole thing, just really living that lifestyle. And his dad, Martin Sheen, very Catholic, but also just very loved his family. You know, Charlie always knew he was loved. He had a really strong family. And then they keep, you know, you're going too far, Charlie. It's getting out of control. And he's like, no, I got it. And then one day his mom calls him and says, hey, your dad's birthday is tomorrow. He wants to celebrate it early. So can you come at like 9:30 in the morning? And he's like, in the morning? He's like, yeah, your dad wants to celebrate early. And he's like, God, that is early, but okay, sure. Now, around this time, they bring up something that I had never heard, is that remember the actor Kelly Preston? She was married to John Travolta, but she was in a lot of films, including Jerry Maguire. Passed away, rest in peace. Beautiful girl, but I guess they had dated for a while. And there was some incident where Charlie, a gun went off around her and potentially accidentally shot her. I don't even remember this story at all. It's covered very briefly. It's still a little hazy. I got to look up more details, but it's touched on. And then he goes over for his dad's birthday party at 9:30 in the morning. The mom meets him out by his car and says, Charlie, do you don't, you know, I got to ask you that you don't have a gun with you, do you? And he's like, Mom, no, I don't have a gun. He goes, I might have a gun in the trunk, but I don't have a gun on me. And they go, okay. I just wanted to ask. And he goes, I go into the house, I walk into this back room and I'm looking for any semblance of a birthday party, a balloon, a cake, nothing. But all I see is just a group of people in a circle in chairs, including like my 8th grade history teacher. And I'm like, why the fuck is my 8th grade history teacher? My 8th grade history teacher has nothing to do with my dad's birthday. What's he doing here? He's like, I see this guy. I know that guy. I know that guy. What the hell is going on? It was an intervention. And he's like, oh shit. And they all go around and, you know, read these things. It's very emotional. And he's thinking, okay, well, do I have to go with you guys right now, or can I think about this? And they're like, no, you got to go right now. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. And then his dad led him to another room, and on a phone, he passed the phone over, and it was Clint Eastwood. And Clint Eastwood was like, kid, you're one of the ones worth saving. We gotta, you know, you gotta clean it up. You went too far, and that actually was the thing that really resonated with Charlie. So he drives to rehab with his dad and somebody else. They've kind of boxed him in the back seat, and he gets at this rehab facility. But the thing is, he was supposed to be in Palm Springs that night with Nicolas Cage to judge some kind of Tropicana like bikini contest or something. And he was like, fuck, I'm in rehab. Like, what can I just, maybe I can just go to the Tropicana thing and I can come back and then I can start the rehab. And he manages to sneak out of the rehab, goes to Palm Springs of all places, parties his balls off, and then shows up wrecked the next day in rehab. And this docuseries is filled with stories like that. And it's like one rehab after another. I mean, it is just depravity. And then finally, it manages to stick. And he tries to build up his career again. And that's when Michael J. Fox was on a sitcom called Spin City on ABC. And he was dealing with the early effects of Parkinson's, right? And so he has to leave Spin City, and they have Charlie Sheen coming in to fill in for Michael J. Fox. And he does it successfully for a couple of years. And he had never done like a full-on sitcom. He had guest starred on Friends. Remember that episode of Friends with Lisa Kudrow? He had guest starred on Friends, but he had never led a sitcom. He had been doing movie work, but he found that he was good at it. He was okay. No Michael J. Fox, but he was good. And then Spin City got canceled, but him and his people were like, we want to do this. Put the feelers out that Charlie wants to do sitcoms. And that's when he met Chuck Lorre, the creator of Two and a Half Men, but also The Big Bang Theory and pretty much every CBS sitcom known to man at this point. He is a legend in sitcoms. In fact, we had, I think her name's Jessica Radloff, who wrote the Big Bang Theory book and does a Big Bang Theory podcast. We had her on the show about 6 months ago, I think, or maybe shorter than that. And she was just telling me all these stories about Chuck Lorre. And so Chuck Lorre and his writing partner write this Two and a Half Men. And in writing it, he wrote a character that he even thought of as Charlie Sheen, but he didn't think about offering it to Charlie Sheen. It was just how he saw Charlie Sheen in his life at that point, kind of a little bit of a drunk, but a fun guy, kind of crazy. And so it's John Cryer and Charlie Sheen, and they start Two and a Half Men. And it's insanely successful. Now, around this time, he's sober, right? And that's when he marries Denise Richards. And Denise Richards participates in this docuseries. And even at one moment says, I still love this man. I mean, they have kids together. You forget about this stuff. But at some point, Charlie falls off the wagon, gets on oxycodone, and his personality kind of changes. And Denise says, you could see it pretty quickly. And it got violent. I mean, he said, the things that this man put me through, like, we're good now. And I don't believe in holding things against people, and especially since we have kids, but he put me through hell. And they eventually end up getting a divorce, and it's like this big divorce. And then he winds up with Brooke Mueller, his next wife, who he has another couple of kids with. Now, Brooke Mueller, they ended up getting to a point where she was allegedly sober for a certain amount of time at that point. And they end up just doing tons of drugs together. And all the while, Two and a Half Men is one of, if not the number one sitcom on air at that point. And also just made so much money for CBS. Now, John Cryer, the other actor in Two and a Half Men, participates. Him and Charlie Sheen have still not talked since, they let him go from Two and a Half Men. But I think at this point, they will mend fences at some point. But it was great that he participated in this. Because he talked about it, the good and the bad. He's like, when I first met Charlie, Charlie was always so nice and been like, hey man, I just want you to know I'm fully in this. You might have heard stories about me, but I'm going to, I've got you. This is going to be great. And he said Charlie always was. Even when Charlie was fucked up, he would come in knowing his lines, being able to hit every beat. And sitcom acting is such a science. I know that sounds silly, but the person I used to work for, Leslie Kahn, she was so great at breaking down a script and teaching you the mechanics of a sitcom, a multicam sitcom, because there's a certain rhythm. There's like a rule of threes, and you'd have the beats or like undercutting a line. It was really, you'd be able to see the art of a multicam sitcom and how it was written. And Charlie Sheen just instinctively knew how to play everything. But even when Charlie Sheen was so fucked up, he'd be able to come in and just nail things. So everything's going smoothly. And then one Christmas, him and Brooke fly to Aspen, and they end up just doing a bunch of drugs together. Just hole up and do tons of drugs. Something happens to the point where she calls the police and says, Charlie's doing all of these things to her. They arrest Charlie Sheen. I don't know if you'll remember this. It was over the holidays a long, long time ago. She ends up recanting her statement. And even in the documentary, she says, listen, I was so fucked up. I don't have specific memories of that. So I recanted. The DA got really pissed at me. And even Charlie in this, Brooke Mueller, says, he's like, in this docuseries, he says he's at this point, I think 7 or 8 years sober. But he says Brooke, she's, her journey with sobriety is taking a little longer. So I think Brooke maybe, it sounds like, repeatedly falls off the wagon still, but she still does participate. So there's craziness happening in Two and a Half Men. And he's doing tons. In fact, they even have his drug dealer participates in this. And the drug dealer ends up being one of his best friends that he just hangs out with. Just the dealer that, he's like, yeah, sometimes you just come up, we would just listen to music, watch TV, just like that. He just hung out 24/7. His drug dealer. And he participates. It's insane. But things are going really crazy in Charlie Sheen land at Two and a Half Men. And they're trying to renegotiate his contract because it's the number one sitcom. And he's not well. And everybody kind of knows he's not well. The drug use is increasing. John Cryer can sense it. Everybody can sense it. But they still want him. And that's where commerce is so fucked, right? It's like, this is bad, but they keep pushing. It's kind of like a little bit how I feel with Taylor Frankie Paul being the Bachelorette. Like, I think it is going to be fantastic television. My God, it's going to be so good. But do I think it's healthy for Taylor Frankie Paul? Hell no. Do I think it's going to make a lot of money for ABC and Hulu? Hell yes. But it's interesting. Everybody knew it was right. But then Charlie Sheen ends up signing the biggest contract in television history at that point. He was getting paid $2 million per episode of 2.5 Men. Now, John Cryer, on the other hand, good old reliable John Cryer, was getting paid a third of that. And he was co-leading the show. So he signs this $2 million contract, but he's now coming in late. He's getting fucked up. It's just becoming increasingly bad. And that's when, if you remember that whole period of time with Charlie Sheen of the winning, I've got tiger blood coursing through my veins, winning. And he had the harem of girls, right? He had the one porn star, I think porn star and the stripper. Like, I remember this, and he would go on like Howard Stern or Alex Jones, and he would just rant, and he was doing like live streams. He gained like 1 million Twitter followers in 1 week. I mean, it was insanity, it was insanity. He was like, no, I'm not on drugs. I just have tiger's blood, Adonis energy. That's what I have. And he did this ABC sit down interview where he just looked so fucked. It reminded me a lot of when Kanye West would be going through like the ups of a bipolar episode. And he looks like shit. But I remember this period of time so vividly, but at the same time, in retrospect, I'm like, wow, we all just encouraged that. And the documentary even said people loved it. They sold out a tour. He was doing a live tour where Charlie Sheen was going and just babbling to audiences. And most people were like, what the fuck is this? We just wanted you to tell stories about your time on Hot Shots and Major League. And he would just rambling, and he was doing a bunch of drugs. And because this was after because they eventually fire him from 2.5 Men. And that's when he does the tour, and he's just, it's crazy. It's just craziness. And this was like, I think a period of, 9 months or something? It went on for a while. And then he said, after the tour, it was done, and I just wanted to hole up and just, with a big bag of drugs, and just disappear. And so he was doing crack. He was smoking crack. He was just getting fucked up at home every night. And the crazy part, dude, his drug dealer, they know that Charlie will never quit. He's like, nope, don't even bother. So one of his drug counselors goes to the drug dealer and says, is there any way, since he won't quit, can you make the crack less potent? I know that sounds insane, but that's really it. Make the drug less potent. And so the drug dealer in the documentary is like, I really love that man, so I was going to try it. And so he starts reducing the potency of the crack that he was cooking up for Charlie. And so eventually, it was 1.5 years later, it was down to nothing, where Charlie thought he was still getting premium crack cocaine, that he was like, it's just not hitting the same. I got to quit. I got to give it up. It's just not worth it. He thought there was nothing in it for him anymore. He didn't realize that the potency of the crack was decreasing every month for 1.5 years. And so he gave it up, but what he didn't give up was drinking. So he was getting fucked up still on drinking. And the thing also with cocaine and crack during that time is your sexual appetite, I guess, gets really crazy. And oh my God, I forgot. There was a whole section on Heidi Fleiss, because he was involved with the Hollywood Madam Heidi Fleiss, and he had spent like $60,000 in prostitutes over a 3-year period. And his name, he gave him an American Express check one time, Heidi, instead of cash like he usually gave her. So his name came up in that court. God, it touches on so many pop culture stories, his story, that's why it's so, I'm even forgetting huge swaths of the docuseries. So then he says my sexual appetite was insane. So he's like, oh man, the menu. I was taking everything on the menu. Yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And he's like, oh yeah, flip over the menu? Yeah, why not? I'm fucked up. Let's do this. And so he admits he admits for the first time that's when he started his bisexual journey. And I had never, so he admits that when that period of time after the tiger blood thing, and when he was really fucked up, he started sleeping with dudes. And he's like, no, I don't regret it. But he's like, I'd be really fucked up. I'd do it. And then I would be coming down and trying to grapple with what I just did. But he's like, I don't regret that now. He's like, actually, a lot of it was a lot of fun. And he goes, look at the hellhole our world is now. Do you think I really give a shit what anybody thinks if I'm bisexual? Do you think I really give a shit? Like it was actually an interesting point. But then the other thing that happens was he thought he was dying coming off drugs. And it turns out he had contracted HIV AIDS. Now, HIV AIDS, fortunately, is not the death sentence that it once was. And so once it was diagnosed, they were able to treat it, but he was told to keep it a secret. And so he was still sleeping with a bunch of women that were then blackmailing him because, they would take pictures of his HIV drugs and threatened to send them out. And he said, I paid one girl $500,000 to keep it quiet. I paid another girl $1.4 million to keep it quiet. He goes, the $500,000 one, that was like getting off cheap. That was easy, And then eventually he said, I just got to come clean. I don't want to have to continually get blackmailed. Anywho, eventually he ends up sobering up from everything because it's something with his daughter, Sammy, where he couldn't drive her to get her hair done and had to get his friend to do it because he was so fucked up with drinking. And he was looking at her in the back seat through like a side view mirror and just realized, oh man, what am I doing? What can I do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And at that point, allegedly, he says he's been clean for 7 or 8 years and, his kids are in it and talk about the relationship they have with him now. There are so many details of this docuseries that I have not even touched on. And it is interesting because I think a lot of people forget or just don't care about little pockets of pop culture anymore. But this Charlie Sheen one was very interesting just because it touches so many other celebrities and stories and drug addiction and family. So I recommend it. I want to know what you guys think. But it was, I started the first part, blew through that, and then I was like, let's move on to the second part. I watched it all in one sitting, and so it was really, really interesting. Okay, 2 more things before I let you go, and then Friday we'll do an all-new OC recap of tonight's episode. Get ready for that shit show. So we said Taylor Frankie Paul was announced like I predicted she would be on yesterday's episode as the new Bachelorette for ABC. She announced this on Call Her Daddy with Alex Cooper because you got to announce on Alex Cooper now. I guess it's a thing. And she does this whole interview. I did not listen to it. So these are just a couple of things that I was told or I think are interesting. Was that Dakota, the gentleman that we saw in Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, who she has a child with, they are no longer together, but this potentially is the first time that Dakota was finding out that she is the Bachelorette was through this interview. And she talks about that on the podcast. And then in Alex Cooper's TikTok of this, Dakota, because Alex asked, like, how many times have you hooked up with Dakota? When's the last time? And she's like, oh, I don't really know. And they're like, oh, was it Stagecoach, which was last May? And she goes, oh, yeah. And she goes, like, maybe 1 or 2 times since. And then Dakota in the comments wrote 1 or 2 times, ... got it, LOL. Which leads me to believe, 1, Dakota is still messy as F, and 2, that they potentially hooked up a lot more than that. Now, a lot of people are saying Dakota should just apply to be on this season of The Bachelorette. Dakota should just apply and just really, but ABC, if ABC is getting this weirdly creative with the casting, they're going to make Dakota some part of this, or he's going to pop up in some capacity. Also, if you watch Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, Taylor Frankie Paul's parents, their parental unit is very interesting. They really slut-shamed her in that one episode that I found horrifying. I'm so sorry. I don't want to rain on anybody's parade or poo-poo anything because I will watch this because there's nothing I can do to stop it at this point. So I just don't think this is good for her mental health. I just don't. It's going to be fantastic reality television, but nothing in the second season of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives led me to believe that she would be ready to date 25 dudes. She doesn't care if they're Mormon, she said. And really, I mean, I don't know how Mormon she is at this point. She has 3 children, and that shouldn't disclude you from being a part of The Bachelorette, but there is a lot of stuff that she already has to deal with on top of just making that many TikToks for Mom Talk. So I think she said the age range, like she'd go as high as 42 years old. Who knows? They're presently casting right now, so we will see. Yeah, this worries me. But at the same time, studying reality television history, this is something that will put this franchise back on the map. point blank, period. Like, honestly, this is the thing that I always talked about. They needed to re-energize the whole franchise. They have such fantastic intellectual property with just the Bachelor and Bachelorette name, but it's gotten tired and it's gotten stale. And so this is a way to really bust all of that open. Plus, it's promo for Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. It's promo for Hulu. So it's really smart from a business standpoint, but I think from a human standpoint, it is sadly lacking. But nobody is paying anybody in television to have insane empathy or to do the right thing. In fact, usually they're paid to do the exact opposite. So I think we'll all be watching potentially. And this, I mean, to my point, I will probably cover it on this show now whenever it happens. I'm like, yeah, that's a no-brainer because that will be fantastic drama. Now, of course, we have ongoing Vanderpump Rules drama, as we always do. And the 6 degrees of Sheena Shea deepens and widens. Thank you for everybody that tagged me in the one thing on Watch What Happens Live. I guess Ashley Simpson was on and said that she's really good friends with Sheena Shea because I think their daughters go to the same school. And Ashley Simpson is also friends with Danny and Nia. Listen, Ashley Simpson on the Valley, you never know. But she said this, and I guess Sheena was on Gia Giudice's podcast and said an offhanded comment about Katie being forgettable. Something like Katie Maloney is forgettable. Now, I'm of two minds on this. Now, on its face, it's petty. Why make jokes at Katie Maloney's expense? Katie Maloney is not currently on reality television, nor do I think she's planning on being reality television. She seems like she has a pretty good life. She does her podcast. She has the sandwich shop. She has a dude that she seems really in love with who's in the rock band. And that's great. I want that for her. And like, it's so nice for somebody to not desperately trying to be on reality television. So I'm like, good for you, Katie Maloney. But like, Sheena taking a shot at Katie is kind of shitty on its face. Now, if you look at it from another angle, it's kind of very Sheena in the sense of, at this point, Sheena is so smart and so aware of things that she says and what will get picked up by the news and what won't. And I think when I have to believe, could be wrong, I have to believe when she says things like this, she knows it will travel. She knows it will travel. And that gets clicks, that gets all the impressions that we also care about as creators. And then, of course, Katie Maloney has to answer this on her podcast, which, of course, Katie Maloney doesn't want to do. And I don't think she does want to do this, but she does it. And in a sense, it's then good for her podcast. Disrespectfully, she hosts with Dana Cathan. That's good. It drives people to listen. I mean, it's shitty. I don't think Katie wanted to answer another shitty thing that Sheena said about her. And especially because Sheena wrote about Katie a couple of times in her book. But she answered. Now, this is from one of my favorite accounts, Vanderpod Recaps. I talked about this account on the show on Tuesday, about one of my favorite accounts, because I don't have time nor the inclination to listen to all of these podcasts. And they do a great breakdown of all the stuff that you need to know. So make sure you follow Vanderpod Recaps on Instagram if you don't. So here's a couple of the things in regards to Sheena. Now, Katie says, I didn't want to talk about this because at the end of the day, talking about something and saying you don't care about it is a bit of like, what do you call it? And Dana's like, oxymoron. And Katie's like, so I don't want to confuse the fact that I don't really care, but I also just feel like, you know what? It's time. It's fucking time. I've commented on a video about it, but we've never actually talked about the Sheena's book of it all. The reason why I commented on this particular creator's page is because I love them and they're fantastic. His name is Josh, and she's talking about our bud Josh the Roni Stan on TikTok, who I love. But it was because I've read some things about you in her book that I've seen, and then I'm under the impression, or I've been told, that she's just referred to me as a drunk throughout her book, which, whatever. But when she had said that the new low for a cast member was me going to Mexico, I was like, no. So Mexico was where Sheena's marriage to Brock happened. And in the book, Sheena said that Katie wanted to go to Mexico, right? Do you remember that? When Schwartz was potentially hooking up with Raquel Levis and Katie was in the other hotel with her friend. And it was like Katie's like watching over, or that's how it was presented. Katie says, yeah, a new low was me going to Mexico because blah, blah, blah. Basically, she just retold what had happened, but called it a new low. The one thing I've never talked about is why I went to Mexico. It wasn't because I wouldn't get paid or I missed out, because Sheena said also it was because Katie wanted to get paid for an episode. They were going to have to film me regardless of whether I was in Mexico, and I was going to be in an episodic. I was paid per episode, so I was getting the episode no matter what. So Katie was saying I was getting paid for any episode of Vanderpump Rules that last season or 2 seasons ago, even if I wasn't in the episode. Katie says Sheena for months was panicking because Bravo told her they were not going to film her wedding. They did not want to film her wedding, but everyone was going, and I know production was freaking out because half the majority of the cast was going to be there. What were they going to do? Were they going to have to ask some people to stay back? Who knows? Now, to this point, I had heard that this is why the Sheena of it all really always surprises me, is because I did hear pre-Sheena's wedding that they were sending a skeleton crew to film Sheena's wedding. And I remember hearing that at the time, and it made no sense to me at all. Like, how do you not make this a big event? How do you not make this, like, that to me is a big event. I still don't know the answer to that. But then that they were going to send like 1 or 2 people to just capture a couple of like B-roll footage of Sheena's wedding. And it made no sense to me. So this, from what I had heard years and years ago, what Katie is saying completely checks out. Katie says, when Sheena and I ended up having all that drama, we were driving back from Havasu, and one of the producers was like, here's the thing, you have to go. He's like, I have needed to work with Bravo about not losing the cast, but I sold them on filming Sheena's wedding because I've sold it as there's going to be 2 trips happening. Was this Jeremiah that she's talking about? Anyways, Katie says, you're going to go on a trip still. I got to bring Christina Kelly with me, and then we're going to film the wedding. So it's going to be these 2 trips happening at the same time. That was how they were able to get Bravo to agree to go to Mexico. So I was like, all right. I was like, well, is someone going to tell her this? Because I feel like if I'm just really pushing to go, that it's just going to be weird. I don't want to go. I'd rather stay home and pick my fucking nose. That's great. And Katie goes, and then go see what? Just go watch my ex and Raquel make out? Just be around a bunch of people I can't stand? Why? And then Dana says, I was going to say, that kind of surprises me that she would say that in the book because she knows why you were there. Katie goes, she doesn't know. I never told her. I wouldn't want to be like, well, guess what? The only reason why their camera is here is because I'm here. Because also that makes me sound like a fucking asshole. I will say, it sounds like the production tells different things to different cast members. I always get that vibe when they talk about the show. Katie continues, but Lala was in the car with me when he told me this, if she wants to corroborate. But yeah, that was how they got the camera. You know what? Here's the thing. I am good at my job. I don't speak about this shit. I don't spoil behind the scenes stuff. I don't make producers' life hard. That's why I've never been demoted, unlike Sheena. Woo! And Sheena does confirm that she was demoted 2 times in her book. So I'm better at my job than you were, Katie says, and I didn't want to be an asshole. I believe it or not. And I feel like an asshole now talking about it, but if you must know, you must know. And if she wants to keep going on podcasts and being bitchy about it and pretend like I'm forgettable, she was talking about me on another podcast. I'm forgettable. Go on, girl. I don't care. She was talking how she wasn't going to send me your book. I don't want your book. You asked me for my address last year to send me some bullshit in the mail. I don't want you to know where I live. How about that? I don't care. So yeah, that's all to say that I don't care. But girl, I've actively put you out of my life on purpose. So please stop talking about me. I'm already not having to talk about it because please leave my name out of your goddamn mouth. Woo, Katie. Now I want to see Katie on the Valley. But you know what it is? There's more to read here. But folks, this is what I always talk about, because now Sheena will have to respond to this. And then it just continues that cycle. And then we have to tune in to get the next little bit of news. And it's like a serialized show all of a sudden. So Dana had some shit to say too, because if you remember in Sheena's book, if you read it, she talks about after finding out Brock had cheated on her, they went to Coachella and Brock was there and she made out with Dana at Coachella, and it made Brock very angry. Now, Dana goes, I was pretty surprised about one of the things about me in the book. And the reason I'm saying this too is, I also wasn't sure if I was going to comment on it because look, I'm very happy for Sheena that she wrote a book and all the opportunities in her life. I love this. I'm very, very fucking sad for her that Brock fucking cheated on her when she was pregnant. That's so fucking lowbrow and disgusting. I want to be very clear about that. The reason that this, I feel like, got more traction, there's a girl who was doing little excerpts of TikTok of her book, and she made a fucking video about this, and people were blowing me up about it, and I was just kind of like, whatever. People remember things differently, but she talked about us making out at Coachella, and I remember it very differently. We absolutely made out at Coachella. I made out with Sheena a bunch of times, Dana said. Also, to be clear, great kisser. Remember when what's his name is like saying that Sheena was a bad kisser? That's not fucking true. We were at Coachella. So Dana's saying, not only did I make out with Sheena at Coachella, I made out with Sheena a bunch of times. Dana says, we really fucked up. In the book, she basically says that I could sense her sadness about Brock. I could sense her sadness. And so I tried to make her feel better with kissing her. I had googly eyes. I was just like making out. I made out with a bunch of people that weekend, possibly day, you know? What happens in the desert happens in the desert. But also, it's not like I didn't want to kiss her at all. I probably did kiss her first. She was laying on me and we were like, you know, it was right. I was sitting down and she was laying in my lap and yeah, we made out. I didn't think anything of it, moved on with my life. She did tell me that weekend that Brock was mad about it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I never would have kissed you if I thought that was the thing. But she basically said that I could sense her sadness and wanted to kiss her better. I had no idea she was sad. I thought we were all having a good time. I have like videos of her dancing around. I certainly couldn't have, if you gave me $1 million, said like, this is what she was going through. I had no fucking idea. And Coachella, based on how she's talked about the timeline, I'm pretty sure she had just found out when we went to Coachella. Like really recently had just known that he had done that. So like they seemed great. We all had a fun weekend. I had no idea she was going through that. I'm also so sad for her that she was going through it. Katie goes, nobody did. No one fucking knew. But she also wanted Ariana to read her mind and just ask her if she was okay, and she would have told. She was blaming Ariana for her not telling her, but then giving her the fucking third degree. It's just, you know what? Yes, of course that's disgusting and sad that happened to her while she was pregnant. Dana goes, awful. But just to be clear, I didn't know she was sad. That was not the vibe. I was just having funsies in the desert. That's what happened for me. So I don't know. Lots of people were asking me my perspective. That's my perspective. And it's always like their side, your side, and the truth. So I know that. And it's honestly also not even that big of a fucking deal for me. I just like when I heard that, I was like, oh, no, that's not. Dana goes, I wasn't like licking your tears with like healing properties. We were having fun. And Katie goes, yeah, so that's our side of things since we've been asked a bunch and all that. That really made me laugh. Oh my God, my hair is wild right now. It made me laugh. And I would be so curious about the download numbers on this episode, if that gave them a bump. Or not, you know, but now Sheena's going to have, Sheena just responded last week to the Kiki Monique Gretchen shit and Katie Janela shit. And now, I mean, this is the way Sheena generates content. I tell you, it's got to be studied. 6 degrees of Sheena Shea, but that gave me a laugh, and hopefully it gave you a laugh too. Now, there are so many other things to talk about, but that's it for today. Thank you for being here as always. I know sometimes this kind of shit just does not matter at all, and I get that. So if you're here, thank you. And Friday, we will try to turn on the goofiness and the fun and just yell about something about a little town in Orange County, and we'll go from there, okay? Try to be nice to each other today, and yeah. Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon. Bye.